Call this meeting to order at 5:15 p.m. And the item on the agenda, approval of agenda. I have a motion.
I'll motion.
Motion by Chris, second.
Second.
All in favor? Passes. Item 3, introduction of trust members. At this time, I will let Sarah begin.
I'm Sarah Evasion, work at my STEM Evasion Lieutenant Principal there. Glad to be.
Well, hello, my name is Christopher Franey. I am an 8th grade math teacher over at Woodridge Junior High School.
Elizabeth Valenzuela, Chief Deputy County School Superintendent.
I'm Bruce Jensen. I'm a retired lawyer. My practice was in the wills and trusts and estate planning type fields. And lived here, my wife and I lived here for 49 years now. And her career was as a first grade teacher at District 1 schools, primarily. Our 3 kids went to school here locally at Raleigh and New Vista. So we've been around for a while.
Okay, item 4, background and objectives. At this time, I will hand that over to Mr. Connor.
All right, thank you. So Allison will present a little bit more detail in her presentation on the background about, the self-funding and kind of where we come from as a district. But just wanted to take a moment to touch a little bit on the objective of the self-funding model, or what our district is looking for, or kind of the things that drove us in this direction. I think one being just being able to offer a rich benefit to our employees and having some control over that benefit, I think is a big one. The history that Allison goes through will show some of the challenges we've faced with year-over-year increases for healthcare costs, and so we wanted to have a little bit more of an ability to manage that or control that in some way. And so that's part of the reason we're looking at this. And the other one, again, is just to provide a really rich benefit to our employees to enhance the experience for them. We don't have very many families in our family plan. Most of our offerings are just employee only. And so we want to be able to offer benefits that are rich and affordable for everyone within our district. And so that's kind of the 2 main reasons: some control and just some more efficiency or affordability in what we offer our folks.
Thank you. Item 5, presentations, Capital Financial, Allison.
I put a printed presentation out. I can also pass it on. But essentially what we're going to go through today is sort of we are a firm, but also talk through our background with Piedmont Elementary. We've been serving the district now for about 7 years, since 2016, and we came on board. So help to try and facilitate that exit from the IABC, the Area Benefit Consortium. And so it's been a journey, and we've done a lot since then, but I'm going to try to keep things brief. For those of you who have met me, I get really nerdy about insurance, and so I will try to keep this as a relative kind of 101 as to self-funding, and again, a little bit of background history of where we've come in our insurance journey here at District 1. So first slide here just shows you this is the team from CAPFI that's been assigned to the district. All of our folks here have been working on, in some capacity, on District 1's benefits package, again, since 2016. That picture of most of us is about 10 years old, so yeah, never mind the new face that I have here. So, next page just outlines again some of our history of our partners. We have worked with over 200 governmental agencies, whether that's our school districts or municipalities, towns, fire districts, etc. Together, collaboratively, we've had about 45 years of benefits experience. I've been personally in insurance for about 17 years, and then again, our partners and the others who have been assigned to the District 1 account have been working in the insurance industry for upwards of 20, 25 years. So a little bit of insurance background, I would say. We have about 45 clients that will be on the next page that are specifically school districts. We also had a separate account team that works on private sector business. But again, the team that I'm showing you here is really primed into the public school district industry. So the next page, can't see that, but you can see it on your printed page. Just outlines again some of the school districts that we work with across the state. We have districts as small as 25 lives up to 1,500, 2,000 lives. So we really work with a lot of different sized districts. We have quite a handful down here in Yuba County, and so I joke about my car not being a Tesla, but being able to autopilot itself down here. So we are happy to have that one business down here, of course. But so as you can see, we work across the state with public school districts. So that's about me. These next several pages are really going to be, again, about the district's renewal history, our insurance history as a district, sort of where we've come from and where we are headed in this upcoming round. So I know it's hard to see it there on the screen, but as you kind of look at your document here, this table does have quite a bit of information, but essentially we've broken out by row each plan year for the last several plan years. You can see, for example, that first row indicates our plan year from 2014-15. That was when the district was still YABC. We didn't have loss ratio information from that time, but we were able to gather information about final renewal and what the district was charging, or excuse me, what the district was paying per employee per year for benefits. So if we look all the way back to that 14-15 year, we see that it was just over $4,000 per employee per year to contribute toward their benefits. At that time, you were offering a PPO 1000 plan and a high deductible health plan, both paid at 100% by the district, meaning an employee enrolling just themselves in that coverage didn't have to pay any additional premium. If they wanted to enroll their dependents, there was additional cost for that, and that's really been kind of the trend for the district, is to try to absorb as much of the employee cost as possible. Again, with to Dennis's point, the objective to try to be able to subsidize a little bit more of that family premium so that we're really able to offer a rich benefit to the folks who have spouses and children that they need to cover. So as we kind of look at this, a few things again that I feel are really important to note is the third column over from the left. That's our loss ratio. And essentially what that means is how much we are paying in premium versus what an insurance company is paying in claims. So as you kind of look down there, you see at YABC, we didn't really get a lot of that data. During the YABC times, we were in a consortium, we were in a pooled arrangement, so we didn't always have district-specific claims data available. We just, as a district, had to take the overall pooled increase. There wasn't flexibility in that. And so when Cat 5 came along, when we started working with the district in 16-17, we did a full RFP and were able to move the district out of that pool and save a lot of money, but again, be able to design your plans in such a way that you had a little bit more flexibility compared to when you were with the pool. And so as you can see, starting 17-18, we start to have some of that loss ratio data, some of that claims data. For example, 17-18, we ran at an 81% loss ratio, which means basically we paid for every dollar that we paid in premium, the insurance company only paid 81 cents. So they were making a little bit of money on us, and you can see that our renewal impact shows that at a rate passive plus 0%. But again, you can see the trend annually, that cost of coverage continues to kind of go up year over year. And you can, again, kind of glance through as we look through the history, various loss ratios, 135, 95, 2021 as at 67%. I will say that that's important to call out because if you remember, during that time, we were going through a global pandemic. And at that time, our governor put a halt on any planned procedures, right? Any elected procedures. So say, for example, if you had a shoulder surgery scheduled, or you had a knee replacement surgery scheduled, or something along those lines, all of those were put to a halt, and essentially only emergency care was being treated during that time. And so while we see that loss ratio is relatively low, you can see that our renewal history indicates an increase to that because there was an expectation by actuaries that we would have a large rebound in claims once people, once things opened up, so to speak, and people started going back and getting those elective procedures or getting regular care. In 21-22, we were running again at about 96%. We had a decrease here in the renewal rate, and the primary driver behind that is because at that time we did another RFP, and we moved away from Blue Cross and instead moved to Aetna. So typically when you go out to market, a new carrier will very often be able to provide a deeper discount because they are not responsible for whatever claims have occurred but haven't been paid yet. And so oftentimes we'll see that, particularly in a funding situation where we were fully insured. So we see a few more of those. I won't get going down each of these, but as we look finally at 23-24, this is our current plan year, it just started July 1st. We are still pending, our loss ratio. We have one month of claims under our belt, which we'll discuss in a moment. But the renewal that we received from Aetna, even though we did go out to market for self-funded vendors and a self-funded platform, we did also receive a fully insured, which I'll go into all the details of what those things mean. We did receive a renewal from Aetna that called for a 12% increase. Because we moved to the self-funding arrangement, the district was able to really review and establish what we wanted to actually budget toward based on real raw claims data that we were able to receive over the course of the last several years with Aetna. So I won't go through all of the details of our claims data over all that time, but we will discuss it in a little while. But this is just, again, to another point of Doug's, that moving to the self-funded arrangement really helps to allow for some flexibility. Instead of just taking that 12% that the insurance company assigned to us, we were able to decide, we actually want to keep this at the 7%. We have some reserves, we have some extra funds that might be available that we can use to help pay down claims. But that left us in, a much more flexible situation with more autonomy as it relates to our premiums, what we're paying, what we're charging to employees, etc. Questions on any of that background information? Right. So the next few slides will really just get into conceptually different funding platforms and funding arrangements for insurance plans. So every health insurance plan has basically these three components. You have your claims costs, you have your reserves, and you have your fixed costs. So for many years, we were in a fully insured platform. Essentially, even when we were with YAPC, the consortium, we were still operating as fully insured. And we'll kind of get into that in a minute. But when we're looking at fully insured, we have all of these components. And the primary thing that we would see here is that reserves are actually profits, essentially, or monies kept in the insurance company. So as we kind of look through this, we talked about the loss ratio. So this would be the example where we would see our claims costs versus our fixed costs, reserves, et cetera. Our premium and a fully insured plan makes up for all of these. So they're going to bill 100% of our premium and then break this down into some of that goes to claims, some goes to fixed costs, some goes to reserves, i.e. back to the insurer's pocket. Okay, that makes sense? So with this platform, it's very little risk. It's very easy to manage. But there's no reward to it. We pay the premium, they pay the claims, right? And at the end of the plan year, if our claims or the loss ratio is in red, not where we want it to be, we will find that we'll get a higher renewal increase. And again, we don't really have a lot of flexibility in that. We can always go back to the carrier and request or try to negotiate a renewal decrease or something like that, which we did several times. And thankfully, Blue Cross and Aetna both were willing to kind of play with that. But it's the word play is accurate, right? It's a little bit of a shell game. And you don't, again, have a lot of that flexibility or that autonomy within our budgeting in this arrangement. So that's where we have stood for very many years. And that's kind of a fully insured concept. So flip on over to that next page. This breaks down the self-funding arrangement a little bit. Again, there's a lot more involved in this, but essentially moving down to self-funding, we still have the same three components, our fixed costs, reserves, claims costs, to our medical plan. But what we see here, you see the big ticker here, is that as far as the reserves, any reserves that are there are kept by the district. So if our claims costs and our fixed costs are not higher than what we budgeted toward, then any money that is below that, or the difference, excuse me, in that, we get to keep, and we get to continue to build a reserve fund for higher claims cost years, or to eventually be able to buy down, for example, the family premium on some of these medical plans. Okay? So with the self-funding plan, we do have, again, a lot more flexibility. The claims costs are the claims costs, and the district is essentially on the hook for the claims that come through. That said, there are a lot of the same components that make up, as far as fixed costs, that make up a self-funded plan, that make up a fully insured. Flexibility part of this, however, is that the district gets to choose who they want to work with on those aspects. And you also get to help eliminate whatever additional risk you might be taking on. So if we look through the fixed costs, we see administration as a part of our fixed cost. Right now, we're using Aetna for that. That's essentially your customer service. They adjudicate the claims, they pay the claims, they contract with the jobs, they do the ID cards, customer service, all of those types of things are part of the administration. And they are operating as a TPA for us. We have a stop loss policy, which I'll talk about in a minute, but stop loss policy is essentially insurance on our insurance. And it helps really protect the district from the shock loss claims, or a crazy year where we have a lot of very large claimants. It helps to kind of put that umbrella over the top of our policies. So that's in place. But again, each of these these fixed cost items in a self-funded arrangement, you get to pick and choose what carriers we want to use, what level of that reinsurance we want to have in place, et cetera. And these also include utilization review, DM and CM are basically disease management or care management. Those are really going to be risk management programs. These programs help employees who are dealing with chronic illnesses manage those diseases better. Or if somebody is diagnosed with a critical illness, a cancer, or something like that, it helps get them engaged, get them the care that they need timely, and help them to hopefully recover from that disease. Also included will be our network access. Again, we're using Aetna for our network right now. We could at any point say, hey, we're not satisfied with Aetna, we want to pull that single piece out and change into another network if we wanted to. And even within network, or to the Aetna's own networks, they have multiple layers of coverage, and we could say, well, we want this one, but we also want to add, a Mayo Clinic, for example, or more specialist hospital that maybe wouldn't always be covered. And it's really at the district's discretion how much we want to engage those higher cost providers or those more specialized providers, as opposed to just being sort of caught in, here are your two options for your network, right? We also get to select a pharmacy benefit manager. At this point, we're using the Aetna provider, so CVS is kind of our primary. And then we also have included as a fixed cost an EAP, which is an employee assistance program. The EAP is not necessarily required as part of a medical plan. It is something that we wanted to make sure that we captured because it's really a resourceful benefit for employees. And so we did include that in here, although not every self-funded plan would necessarily include an employee assistance program. So with that self-funding, you can see that it's a higher risk, but it's a higher reward. And again, the primary driver here is based on any reserves that accumulate, we get to keep them. But the risk, of course, is that if we have a high claims year and we go over what we budgeted, we are at risk for having to pay those claims above our budget. So that's really the primary difference between the fully insured and the self-funded, right? Again, a lot of advantages to this, which we can look to actually to the next page, kind of breaks down a little bit more some of the advantages and disadvantages of the program. So obviously, with the advantages, we have a return of premium or reserves, and we have great claims experience. Across the board there, on the disadvantages, we potentially have more risk exposure. Advantages, again, as we talked about, we have the flexibility of customizing our plan. We can do our network carve-outs, we can optimize our plans. A few of these items we can discuss already. For example, we added a Mexico network that we weren't previously eligible to have. We were able to add that for this year. Some of our lower fixed costs. Again, we saw the stop loss policy that was quoted by Aetna, and we carve that out and work with another vendor to handle the stop loss policy, which offers the same coverage but at a lower cost to the district. So again, just some flexibility here in being able to design our plan. And there's some additional budget flexibility, which Dennis will be able to talk about that in a moment. I say a moment, like another 2 hours after the but one of the big ones here is full transparency of your premium, because now we know every dollar that's being spent, and our claims reporting. The claims reports are really important, not because we want to know everything that everyone's dealing with in their health, but it helps to really inform our plan design. And even beyond that, help inform our wellness program, right? But if we continuously find that folks are dealing with just chronic diseases, well, we can tailor that plan accordingly. If we find that some folks are just using the emergency room as a primary care and they're making multiple visits, well, we can stagger that and say after 2 visits your copay is higher or your deductible applies or those types of things. So again, there's a lot more flexibility in the plan design rather than having kind of these canned plans, and the claims information is going to help inform those decisions and those plan designs. Again, as disadvantages go, we don't have that set premium that we pay every month. We don't get a bill from Aetna that says pay this amount. Instead, we have our fixed cost bills, which don't really change, right? Those don't really change. They may change based on enrollment, right? We have an influx of new hires who are enrolled in the plan. We may see some changes there. But each week we're getting a check register that shows us our claim history for that week, and we have to pay that bill. And so, as you'll see, we'll go through kind of how we are budgeting toward this. But as we look through this, there will be months where we're paying way under what we would be paying on our fully insured platform. There will be others where we're paying much higher, right? And so, based on the last couple of years, we did 2 separate feasibility studies with a partner called Windsor Actuaries. And in 2020, we did it. I think it was great for Elizabeth. We did that, and they looked at all our claims data. We looked at what we're paying in premium and what the self-funding projections were going to be for claims. And then determined, wow, we're probably not going to be able to outperform our fully insured position this time. So we waited a couple of more years, see how things went. We did another, and that was basically saying that there was a 75% chance that we would be in a more favorable position, self-funding versus fully insured. And so that's when the EA team and the district decided to kind of make that leap to the self-funding arrangement. So, but that is, again, one of those disadvantages. A lot of employers, of course, and people in general like to know what is my bill going to be every single month. That's much like the APS cost saver, right? Every month I know it's this, but maybe I'm paying more over the long run versus, oh, I'm just gonna have to deal with my July and August ACE bills, right? So it's the difference is analogous to that. Make sense? Alrighty, so let's talk a little bit about budget development and some of the protections that are going to be in place or currently are in place, excuse me. So as we look at this slide, we do again have our fixed costs sort of listed down here, and then it also breaks down our claims costs into 2 separate categories, our expected claim cost and our maximum claim cost. As you look through this, on the left side, you see kind of a dotted line across that says fully insured premium. So when we are in a fully insured situation, the actuaries and the underwriters at that insurance company will look at our demographics, they'll look at claims history if it's available, and they'll say, well, we think you're going to be somewhere between here, which is our expected, and then catastrophic here. And more often than not, the actuary meets in the middle, and that's how they set our fully insured rates, okay? So when we look at this self-funded model, we work with actuaries who do much of the same thing, right? And so if you remember, I was talking about our current rates. Aetna said, we're fully insured, we probably need to be at 12%. So we said, well, we know what our expected is based on the actuary study. We know what the maximum will be based on the actuary study. And so we're going to set our premium at about 7%, because then there's still that cushion between the expected and the maximum, but it still gave a little bit of a respite to the employees getting 7% increase rather than 12%. So there are protections, and they mentioned the stop loss policy or insurance for our insurance or reinsurance. we do have that coverage in place. So on the right side, you see again our umbrella, I kind of alluded to earlier. The biggest question that we get is, well, what if we have somebody who has $1 million claim? What if there's a preemie baby that's in the hospital for 2 months and that blows our whole plan out of the water, blows our whole budget out of the water, right? So that's why the stop loss policy exists. The specific reinsurance, also called ISL, individual stop loss, individual deductible, all of those different terms essentially says this is the most that you're going to pay per claimant in a given claim year. And so what we did, again, working with the actuaries, was determine that for this first year, we're going to be a little bit more conservative. And so we have a specific reinsurance level of $150,000. So in that instance of that premature baby with $1 million, $2 million in claims, what we would only be on the hook for is that $150,000 for that one individual. And that applies, that $150,000 applies to every person on our plan. Okay? Well, what if we have a whole bunch of people who need that $150,000? That is also a challenge, right? And so what we have also included is an aggregate stop loss policy or an aggregate group insurance. And essentially that covers us to the top of those maximum claims. What we built in for the first year, again, to be conservative, is we took the expected claims and we said add 25%. We want to be covered at that level, right? And so as we get a little bit more reserved, we get a little bit more mature, we might find ourselves making a decrease to that, where if we do hit a higher level, we can move there. So there's coverage in both the individual and the larger pool of our population to help kind of keep that budget, help set that budget. So does that concept make sense? Any questions? Let's carry on. I debated on whether I should put this slide first, but the next several pages have our background. So perhaps in your printed copy, pull the 23-24 to the left, and let's look at the 22-23. So again, keeping in theme, we have in dark blue at the bottom, estimated fixed costs in red our claims, and the dotted line across is our fully insured Aetna premium. Now, as you look at this, this is based on actual district claims for the plan year 22-23. So as I mentioned, in a self-funded arrangement, you will see there are months that we pay more in claims than we would have paid in our fully insured. And there are months where we would have paid less. So if you kind of look through this, that's what we're looking at here. Our total annual claims for 22-23 were about $6.7 billion. And so as we look at that in the fully insured situation, we have our claims costs and our fixed costs are all included in that. So the claims cost is actually above that, or excuse me, the total cost is above that 6.7. Fixed costs are generally about 20% of our total plan. And so based on this, because Aetna does not, well, most carriers do not tell us how much we're paying in fixed costs. This is an estimate at about $123 per employee per month. So you're looking at that footnote there on the left, the bottom left. But this gives you an idea of kind of how we ended up our plan year last year. Now, looking at 23-24, we have our single green dot starting our first month of coverage in a fully insured program. I'm seeing now that my dates at the bottom say 22 and 23. You always catch those when you're printed and presenting, right? You guys have been there with me, I know. At any rate, as we see this, we essentially have only paid out $78,000 about in claims through the month of July. Now that seems like a radical decrease in claims, right? Is that fair? Yeah. So the reason that we're having this happen is because every year, if you want to continue on the other pages to see the history, feel free, that gives you kind of an idea where we've been running. But what happens is, as we continue to roll over with the same carrier year over year, they are paying claims that happened in April, May, June. They're paying those claims in July, August, September. So they're showing up in our July, August, September claims reports. Well, essentially, we are under a brand new carrier, right? We're in this brand new platform, we're in this brand new position. So when 22-23 plan year ended, June 30th, any claims that had happened before that time but hadn't yet been paid, Aetna's on the hook. They're paying for those, okay? And so we're not paying for those, but that's probably the difference in them saying we need a 12% increase and the actuary saying 7% will do. It's because now we're not having to pay what are generally called run-out claims, okay? So we will see the first few months as very immature claims run. You see it primarily out with the medical claims. So as we dig in deeper to the analysis of the claims, we'll see medical will be a couple of months before we see it really catch up to where we would expect it to be. And then our prescription claims, there's really not a lag there, right? You go to the doctor, you go to the pharmacy, you get your prescription, pay for it, and it's already a claim in the system. So we don't really see that lag with prescriptions. So you won't really see that as we get down into the weeds in future meetings where we're really breaking it down a little bit more. But that's why we see this really, really low decrease here. Dennis loves this because these are months to start putting away some reserves, right? So when those real, actual, mature claims start coming in, well, gosh, we have hardly any claims for these first quarter of this plan year. So we have some funds that are available to help offset that and start paying that down. So we will see this get a little bit more aggressive. And really, this will be the only time that we will see something like this. In the examples that I gave of changing out a network or changing out a pharmacy benefit manager, any of the other changes that we can make at this point, we're going to be responsible for run-out as self-funded. Even if we wanted to, for example, we're done self-funded, we're not doing this anymore, and we went back to fully insured, we're still going to be responsible for run-out claims for a certain period. I believe it's 12 months on the contract basis that we selected, but there's still some responsibility for that. And that's, again, maybe a disadvantage of being self-funded. The good news, though, is that, doctors only have 12 months to submit claims. And so if you find that we're not submitting claims timely, well, lucky for us, we're not having to pay those claims, right? But either way, we will see this plan year start to populate a little bit more accurately and will look a little bit more normal, so to speak, compared to our historical stuff. Questions on any of that? Okay, so like I said, I put a few years of history back here just so you get an idea of really where we've been running over the last several years. Definitely have been keeping an eye on it for all this time, knowing that the goal was going to be to move into a self-funded platform. We want to make sure we have history, we're making educated decisions, and again, people way smarter than me, actuaries, underwriters, have looked at this data again and again and again, and they are going to give you the most conservative suggestions, and so that's where we landed here. But one note, if you're looking again at the 23, 24. There we go. If you note here, I also included at the bottom just a note of where the actuaries expect our claims to land at the end of this year at 6.1 million. So just a frame of reference. So our goal is to be below that. Okay, and here we are. So as a self-funded employer, public entity in particular, you are required, obviously, to have an employee benefit trust, which thank you all for volunteering for this. Appreciate your efforts to better the district's benefits, to be part of this. Your feedback really is invaluable and helpful. So certainly glad to have you all on this. But essentially, we can skip actually to the next page. Essentially, this will feel much like a decision-making board. The heavy lifting will primarily be in the background, between CAPFI and the EA team and some of the compensation committee members will get some information and input on what we're hoping to do as far as changes or make moves or things like that. And then we'll try to kind of hone in on those things and then present to you the options that we're leaning toward. So we won't have to do too much work, but primarily we want you to approve any contracts or ask questions about contracts that we're considering and be able to kind of guide us in that way. certainly don't need to be an insurance expert, but it helps. But it will be, it will be our duty, my duty, really, to help kind of inform you as to the options that are available to make this plan better, to make the program more valuable. And then, the EA and CFO is going to keep you kind of updated on financials, but there will be a few times that we will ask for really for your guidance. Primarily will be if we have any disputed claims. So if a claim of $5,000 or more is disputed and by an employee, so you have to deny a claim, the employee wants to dispute that, they want to appeal that, that would be the board's decision to make a recommendation as to whether we would appeal that and allow the claim to be paid or not. There aren't, I will say, that many disputed claims in general. Thankfully, the TPA has enough safeguards and checkpoints in place that most people who are getting services at that level have already gone through multiple layers of recertification or step therapy to make sure that it's appropriate for their disease or their situation, et cetera. But that will certainly be something that we will speak on. And the rest is just sort of fund management, and it's not necessarily your job, but it is something that will be the rest of the districts will be paying invoices, paying for claims registers regularly, and it will be our duty to present that information to you this week. Questions on anything that I talked about?
The people who actually administer this self-insured plan, they will be employees of who?
So we work with a TPA. Aetna is acting as our TPA, or third-party administrator. But the district employees who are kind of managing it are here. Mr. Jamie that is working on that. Luciano Munoz is also very engaged in that as the HR director. The EA team, superintendents are also very engaged in managing that. But as day-to-day goes, it's primarily the finance.
We do have an insurance team within our district. I'm on that. Luciano is on that. Luciano's lead in HR is on that. Jamie is on that. Our payroll supervisor, our lead payroll specialist, and then our lead finance specialist is on that. So we have a group of seven or eight people who meet every month to review the data as well, to stay engaged with it, and to look for trends, to be able to try to get ahead of anything we might think is something we should be aware of and that you guys should ultimately be aware of. And then it also helps us be able to plan what direction we want to go, what can we add to our benefits package to mitigate risk, lower costs, or provide a better product for our folks.
I don't remember much about YABC, but there are differences between this, obviously, self-insured. What are the differences?
Well, the number one thing, I'm just yelling the whole time. The primary difference is that that's in a pooled arrangement. And so any reserves that would have accumulated would be not really dispersed back to the members of that pool. Instead, it was just held in place to either buy down renewal rates or to help absorb some of the renewal rates that should have been incurred. There's very little flexibility in plan design. So we're able now to, like I said, we added Mexico coverage where you can add certain different benefits and variables to those plans that are offered now. A very big driver, very big difference, and a big driver of moving out of that consortium was the district had to pay the premium or fully insured equivalent premium for any employee who waived coverage. So for example, if they were paying $1,000 per year, we wish, right? $1,000 per year per employee who's enrolled in the plan. If we had 100 people waive that, the district still had to pay those premiums into the pool. So when we moved the district out of the pool, it was about a $630,000 savings just for that one item. And so topping that, plus all of the lack of that flexibility, et cetera, lack of plan design, lack of decision-making ability. Those are really the primary differences there.
How many employees are we?
I think there's about 900 employees enrolled. I'm not sure how many full participants do with dependents, but I want to say at last count we were, I want maybe 850.
Um, 1,400, I would say. Yeah.
That's pretty common, and particularly in areas like this where we have a lot of folks on TRICARE. Yeah, local military coverage, so it's pretty common. We see that a lot of people counties, but not counties as well. Any other questions?
So what are our functions as trustees then? We're going to meet quarterly. What do we actually have to do?
Well, as the plan begins to mature a little bit, and to echo what Dennis said, as we start to evaluate other options for the plan, other benefit packages, other kind of buy-in options, or premium renewal increases, budgeting, all of those types of things are really going to be part of the decision-making process that we're going to actually participate in. Apart from, again, that appeal process that may or may not come up frequently.
So our hope is that we will be able to offer better, less,
Yeah, that would be the goal, is to still be able to offer the benefits that we have in place. Currently, the plans are relatively rich definitely compared to the private sector, but compared to other school districts, you're really in line with most other school districts. But one of the things that overwhelmingly we hear is it's too expensive to cover my kids, or it's too expensive to cover my family. And a big driver of that is because the plans are so rich, right? Maybe your kids need a high deductible plan, but you need a copay plan or a lower deductible plan for your own health concerns. And so the district and the employer in general is, the duty is to the employee. But for retention purposes, if you're able to help better serve those families, you're going to see more savings. Your employees really engage and stay around. But that is definitely one of the goals, is to try to buy down that employee rate. Right now, the district contributes 100% to the employee cost on my deductible plan, but any cost above that to enroll dependents, they have to come, they have to everybody their own deduction. The goal would be to eventually be able to subsidize them.
Any other questions for Allison?
On the current plan, what are we offering? Obviously, medical insurance, we offer dental and pharmacy.
Yeah.
Do we offer vision too?
Yeah, so for purposes of the trust board, we're really only having oversight of the medical plan, because the other options, we have dental, vision, life insurance, disability, et cetera. All of those types of benefits right now are still fully insured, so they're not required to be administered or have any trust overview. We will, though, as we get closer to next year's renewal, we will always look at that as a package with you, because those are monies too, right? And those are benefits that we need to pay attention to. But as the medical plan goes, we have 3 medical plan options: a PPO 1000 plan, PPO 750, and then a high deductible plan with a $2,000 deductible. All of them cover what by healthcare reform standards, minimum essential coverage, to include hospitalization, pharmacy benefits. There are some hearing benefits for hearing aids. Routine vision exams are included for children. So some of those benefits that you described, the vision and the dental, are embedded within the medical plan, but we also have those separated out with a little bit richer benefits, the dental and vision specifically, where you have coverage for beyond just an exam or a screening. You can get glasses, you can get contacts, or in the dental, you get fillings, you can get crowns, bridges, dentures, all of those things.
questions?
I appreciate it. I like the question.
Okay, item 5B, financial review, Mr. Connor.
All right, so if you look at the pie chart that I handed out, you get kind of a brief overview of where we are today, or closer to date. So Allison's chart showed you through July. This particular pie chart has some information from August as well. And you will see that August has done a decent job of catching us back up to closer to what those numbers have been in the past. So looking at this pie chart at the top, you can see of the money we've spent, what percentage is administrative fees, what percentage is claims, and what percentage covers stop loss insurance. So administrative fees a little lower than the 20% Allison spoke about, but we're just starting the year, so those percentages can shift as the year goes on. But if you look down, I want to point a little bit to the income section. You'll see there that the district has put in two different sums of $250,000 for a $500,000 infusion to start the year. Some of that is just because we don't have a lot of money coming in July and the 1st of August, because most of our teachers don't get a paycheck till mid-August. And so any of the money we might contribute on their behalf wouldn't start coming in out of a payroll deduction process until middle of August. And so we infused some money up front, sort of prepaid those in a sense, right? Because whatever money we don't need to use, we get to keep for next year. So it's not a loss to us, it's more of a looking at it as a prepay. But I just wanted to point that out. One of the benefits that Allison spoke about is that flexibility from a financial perspective. And, she spoke about a few years ago when we ran the analysis to see if it would make sense to shift to self-funded, and it didn't, but it made more financial sense this year. The other aspect of that is our district is in a much different position financially this year than we were 3 years ago, which makes it a much better time for us to shift right now as well. So just a little bit of history on the district. We don't have our financials done. They won't be done until October, mid-October, but somewhere in the $14 to $15 million is what we were looking to carry forward from last fiscal year to this fiscal year. That's unspent, unencumbered budget. And much of that is attributed to the ESSER funding that we received. So the ESSER funding is money that we received from the federal government from COVID, basically to help mitigate losses, to work with learning loss, to help cover costs that schools were going through for all sorts of different things that came out of COVID. So we were able to reallocate a lot of spending to come out of COVID rather than our district budget, and that gave us a nice carry forward to be able to utilize, and that we felt comfortable making this adjustment knowing we had some money to infuse into this scenario if it was necessary or required. And then the other aspect is we're fairly conservative with the way we budget at the district level anyway. We tend to over budget expenses and under budget revenues just to build in that safety, just to make sure that we're conservative in those figures as well. So you'll see, as you go down to the expense category as well, you can see that significant jump in claims from 70,000 to 277, and we're not done with August yet. So we'll probably see that number go up as well. But those payments are made very regularly, weekly, if not more often. Jamie's in the teal shirt. Jamie's our director of finance. She's the brains behind these charts that you see in front of you, but her team does a great job in managing the income and the outflow of this and making sure that everything is solvent with it. And so we'll continue to see those numbers go up, and then each quarter you'll get these reports that show where we're at, year to date, and we can get a little bit more into the interpretation of the numbers. If we continue as is, are we on pace to stay below the line, or are we on pace to be above the line in terms of our target expenses? So we'll provide more summary information like that in the future, but it's not really useful to have that conversation right now with such little information to project on. But I wanted you to get a picture of kind of what we will be presenting to you guys in the future, so you have an idea what that looks like. And then the next page you have is just the detail behind the claims information, so you can see where that $346,000 number comes from. You can see, each week what those numbers do or how they change. And so that $712 number is just how we kind of ante up or pony up at the end of a month, just to settle up. But then you'll see those weekly charges or more frequent than that based on how much money has been spent in order for those draws to come out to make sure that we're paying our bills. So that's kind of the basic financial review. Any questions specifically about the trust information or any questions you might have about the district and how it might relate to funding this or being able to accommodate this switch?
So the infusion of the 500,000 stays with this now?
Correct, yep. Right, it actually can't go back, is my understanding, is once it goes in, it stays in. And so then as we approach the end of the year, we will kind of see where we're at. Do we need to put more in? Are we comfortable with where we are? We've also considered with the carry forward that we have, do we want to look at some kind of a prepayment as we get closer to the end of the year and see if that makes sense? So there's some things we can consider and look at, but yeah, that 500 that's been put in so far will stay in there.
And then your employee deduction, you've had a full, when does the teacher start the full payroll?
Tomorrow's actually our full with everybody, with all hourly
So this
employees.
doesn't even encompass
It
that
does,
revenue?
because we already had that check. We had it today. So that was 316.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's over 600 a month. So that should keep us on pace with where we targeted, and then we'll just have to see what that utilization looks like. And as she mentioned, with bringing in the Mexico network and being able to educate people and utilize those things that can help reduce costs for us, we can help reduce those expenses and stay below the line.
Were people going to Mexico before and just not running through the insurance, paying for it themselves, or do you think that there's a big usage that would happen there?
Allison can probably speak a little bit better to that. I know there are other organizations in Yuma that utilize that same network and have seen the benefit of being able to do that. YABC, who we used to be a part of, did eventually adopt that. And my brother is the CFO at Crane, and so I asked him some questions about that, and he said, initially it started slow, but as people got comfortable and knew more about it, it picked up and did help offset costs. But Allison can speak more to that.
As far as the district's preferences to use services in Mexico, it's relatively anecdotal. But we do see that a very large ROI if we can get folks to start using that. But it's a slow uptick. One of the school district trusts here that one of the biggest trusts, they have an option for districts, New County, Yuma County, et cetera, to add that in. And we do see a relative utilization of it, but it's a really robust program. And so it's really going to take just, I think, a lot of employee education as to how easy it is to use. For example, if you have an appointment, they will literally pick you up on the other side of the border, so you don't have to wait in line. You just walk up front, and they have concierge service that will help you with that. So it's a really robust program. And so at this point, that was a little bit late in getting the contracting completed, and so there hasn't been much employee education or outreach yet. But it is something that, again, for our districts here in Dade County, we've been asking for a long time to be able to offer it. And so now we have this flexibility to do so. I hope that all of those requests are actually excitement and they'll be able to really utilize it and have some ROI.
Any other questions? No? Okay, item 6, good of the order. Good of the order. Okay. Next meeting is scheduled for November 16th, 2023, same time, same place. Okay. 5:15 here at District 1 boardroom. And we adjourn at 6:10.